The automatic doors of Greenfield Supermarket whooshed open as another wave of afternoon shoppers entered. Tom Brennan adjusted his name tag and smiled at the next customer in line 4. At 26, he had perfected the art of friendly efficiency, scanning barcodes with practiced ease while making just enough small talk to seem personable without slowing down the line. "That'll be $42.50, Mrs. Henderson," he said to the elderly woman, fumbling with her purse. "Need help to your car today?" "You're so sweet, Tom, but I've got it," she replied, patting his hand as he handed her the receipt. Tom had been working at Greenfield for 8 months now, ever since his last job at Morrison & Associates consulting firm had ended abruptly. The transition from a corporate cubicle to a supermarket checkout had been jarring, but he'd grown to appreciate the straightforward nature of the work. No office politics, no backstabbing colleagues, just customers who needed groceries and appreciated his genuine smile. As Mrs. Henderson shuffled away with her cart, Tom noticed her. Sarah Mitchell walked through the automatic doors with the confident stride of someone who knew exactly what she wanted. Designer handbag slung over her shoulder, perfectly styled auburn hair, and that particular kind of polish that came from working in an office where appearance mattered. She grabbed a cart and headed toward the produce section. Tom had noticed Sarah before. She came in every Tuesday around 3 o'clock, always polite, always well-dressed, always buying the same types of items: organic vegetables, premium brands, the occasional bottle of wine. She had a way of making grocery shopping look effortless, like she was gliding through her perfectly organized life. Today, as usual, she made her way through the store with purpose. Tom found himself stealing glances as he served other customers, watching her examine produce with the same careful attention she probably gave to everything in her life. When she finally approached the checkout lanes, Tom straightened up hopefully. "This line looks good," Sarah said, wheeling her cart toward Register 4. "Absolutely. How's your day going?" Tom replied, his usual professional friendliness brightened by genuine interest. "Can't complain. Though I swear this place gets busier every week." Tom began scanning her items: organic spinach, artisanal cheese, a bottle of Pinot Grigio. "Special dinner tonight," Sarah laughed, and the sound made Tom's chest tighten pleasantly. "Just treating myself. Sometimes you need good wine and good cheese to survive the week." "I hear that, though my version usually involves pizza and whatever's on Netflix." "Nothing wrong with that either," she said, grinning. Their eyes met for a moment, and Tom fumbled slightly with the barcode scanner. There was something about her smile that made him feel both confident and completely out of his depth. "That'll be $67.40. As Sarah handed him her card, their fingers brushed briefly. The contact was electric, at least for Tom. "Thanks, Tom," she said, and he realized with a small thrill that she'd remembered his name. "See you next week?" he asked, perhaps a bit too hopefully. "Most likely," Sarah replied, walking away with a smile that lingered in Tom's mind long after she'd disappeared through the automatic doors. The following Tuesday, Tom found himself watching the entrance around 3 o'clock. When Sarah appeared, he quickly turned to his co-worker, Mike. "I'll take the next customer," he said. Mike, 19 and perpetually amused by what he saw as Tom's hopeless romantic streak, just shrugged. "Hey there, busy day?" Sarah asked as she approached his register. "Always. Though it's looking up now," Tom replied, surprised by his own boldness. Sarah raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. As Tom scanned her items, he noticed she'd bought the same wine as the previous week. "Same wine as last week. Good choice. You remember what I bought?" Sarah seemed genuinely surprised. Tom realized how that sounded and backpedaled quickly. I have a good memory for wine. Used to work at a restaurant." "Really? Which one?" The truth was less impressive than he'd like. He'd bussed tables at a chain restaurant in college, but he didn't want to kill the conversation. "Just a local place, nothing fancy." "Still, that's cool. I love good food and wine." Here was his opening. "Maybe I could recommend some places sometime." The offer hung in the air between them. Sarah smiled, but her response was non-committal. "That's sweet of you." After she left, Mike approached with a knowing grin. "Dude, you're so obvious." "What?" "That girl, you light up like a Christmas tree." "She's just nice," Tom protested. "Nice and way out of your league." The comment stung more than Tom cared to admit. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, man. Just You know how it is. But Tom didn't know how it is. He'd never been particularly good at reading social hierarchies or understanding why some people seemed to effortlessly command respect, while others, like him, remained invisible. That night in his small apartment, Tom found himself thinking about Sarah while he heated up leftover Chinese food. He opened his laptop and started typing "how to ask someone out" into Google, then deleted it, feeling pathetic. Instead, he stared at the ceiling and tried to figure out what Mike had meant about leagues. A week later, Sarah returned for her regular shopping trip. Tom had spent the intervening days rehearsing various ways to ask her out properly. "How's your week been?" she asked as he began scanning her items. "Good, though I've been thinking about what you said, about good food and wine." "Oh? There's this coffee place downtown. They have amazing pastries too, very European." Sarah paused, and Tom held his breath. "That sounds lovely," she said carefully. Encouraged, Tom pressed on. "Maybe we could check it out sometime, if you're free." The silence stretched uncomfortably. I'm pretty busy these days," Sarah finally said. The rejection was gentle but unmistakable. Tom nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. "Of course, no worries. You seem really sweet, Tom." The word sweet felt like another small defeat. Tom forced a smile. "Thanks, that's good to know." Sarah left with an awkward wave, and Tom spent the rest of his shift wondering what he'd done wrong. The next week brought an uncomfortable tension to their usual interaction. Sarah seemed more reserved, and Tom was second-guessing every word. When she finished her shopping and approached his register, both of them seemed to be bracing for something. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hey, the usual?" "Actually, just grabbing a few things today." Her cart was notably smaller than usual. As Tom scanned her items, Sarah cleared her throat. "Tom, about what you asked before. You don't have to explain. I want to. You're really nice, and I don't want you to think—" She struggled with the words. "It's just that I'm at a point in my life where I'm focused on my career. I work at Morrison & Associates. It's a consulting firm downtown." Tom nodded, though the name of her company sent an unexpected jolt through him. Morrison & Associates was where he'd worked before coming to Greenfield. He'd been let go after 6 months for what his supervisor had called lack of initiative and insufficient strategic thinking. "I guess I'm looking for someone who gets that world. Someone established," Sarah continued. "Like a manager," Tom said, the words slipping out before he could stop them. Sarah looked uncomfortable. "I didn't say that, but that's what you mean." The conversation was attracting attention from other customers in line. Tom could feel their eyes on him, and something inside him snapped. "So if I asked you for coffee, you'd say no because I'm not management material?" His voice was louder than he intended. "Tom, please." Sarah looked around nervously. "What if I told you I was thinking about asking you out properly? Like, for dinner?" The checkout area had gone quiet. Other cashiers and customers were openly staring now. I only date managers," Sarah said quietly, her face flushed with embarrassment. The words hit Tom like a physical blow. He felt every eye in the store on him, his face burning with humiliation. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. "Right, of course," he managed to whisper. He mechanically finished scanning her items and handed her the receipt without looking up. Sarah stood there for a moment, clearly wanting to say something more, but Tom had already turned to the next customer with a forced smile. After Sarah left, Mike approached with uncharacteristic sympathy. "Jesus, dude, that was brutal." "She said she only dates managers," Tom repeated, still processing what had happened. "In front of everyone. That's cold. I made a fool of myself." That night, Tom sat in his apartment staring at the wall, replaying the scene over and over. "I only date managers." The phrase echoed in his head like a taunt. He walked to his bathroom mirror and stared at his reflection. "Manager," he said to himself. Opening his laptop, he began searching. Management courses, business degrees, how to become a manager. The results were overwhelming. MBA programs, leadership seminars, online courses. Most required time and money he didn't have. Then he found something promising. Community College Business Management Certificate Program. Evening classes. The program was 6 months long, 2 nights a week, with an affordable payment plan. Tom read through the course descriptions. leadership fundamentals, strategic thinking, team management, business communication. The next day at work, Tom was different, more focused, less chatty with customers. During a lull, store manager Janet Collins approached him. "Tom, you okay? You seem off today." "I'm fine, just thinking." "About what?" Tom looked at Janet, middle-aged, successful, respected. "Janet, what made you want to be a manager?" "That's random. Why?" "Just curious." "I don't know. I like the idea of making decisions, I guess. Having responsibility." "Why? Do you think I could be a manager someday?" Janet studied him more carefully. "Tom, you're one of our best cashiers. Customers love you. You're reliable. But management is different. It's not just about being nice to people. You need to think strategically, make tough decisions, handle budgets and schedules. What if I learned those things? Are you thinking about applying for a supervisor position?" Tom shook his head. "Something bigger than that." That evening, Tom enrolled in the business management program. The first class was the following Monday. For the next 3 months, Tom's life fell into a new rhythm. Work during the day, classes on Monday and Wednesday evenings. He threw himself into his studies with an intensity that surprised his instructors. Strategic planning, leadership psychology, financial management, concepts that had seemed abstract and intimidating began to make sense. His professors noticed his dedication. Dr. Martinez, who taught the leadership course, pulled him aside after class one evening. "Tom, you're doing exceptional work. Have you considered pursuing this further? Maybe a business degree?" "I'm just trying to improve myself," Tom replied. "Well, you're succeeding. You have a natural grasp of leadership principles." Meanwhile, at the supermarket, Tom began implementing what he was learning. He started noticing inefficiencies in the checkout process, thinking about customer flow patterns, analyzing peak hours and staffing needs. When Janet asked for his input on a scheduling problem, his response impressed her. "Where did that come from?" she asked, after he'd outlined a solution involving staggered shifts and cross-training. "I've been reading about operations management," Tom said simply. Sarah continued her weekly visits, but their interactions were strained and minimal. Tom was polite but distant, and Sarah seemed to sense the change in him. Sometimes he caught her watching him with a curious expression, as if trying to figure out what was different. 4 months into his program, an opportunity arose. The assistant manager position opened up when the previous holder transferred to another store. Janet approached Tom during his break. "I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to think about it seriously," she said. "Would you be interested in applying for the assistant manager position?" Tom looked up from his sandwich, surprised. "Really? You've changed over the past few months. You're more, I don't know, authoritative. You see the big picture now. Yesterday, when you handled that customer complaint about the expired milk, you didn't just apologize. You walked the entire dairy section, checked dates, and created a system to prevent it from happening again. I just thought it made sense. That's exactly what I mean. You're thinking like a manager." Tom applied for the position and nailed the interview. His coursework had given him the vocabulary and framework to articulate ideas he'd been developing through months of observation and study. 2 weeks later, Janet called him into her office. "Congratulations, Assistant Manager Brennan." The promotion came with a small office, a significant pay raise, and a new sense of authority. Tom found himself coordinating schedules, training new employees, and making decisions that affected the entire store's operations. On his first Tuesday as assistant manager, Sarah came in for her regular shopping. Tom was reviewing inventory reports in his office when Mike knocked on the door. "Your wine lady is here," he said with a grin. Tom looked up from his paperwork. Through his office window, he could see Sarah at the checkout lanes, looking around as if searching for something. Or someone. "She keeps looking over here," Mike added. "I think she heard about your promotion." Tom closed his laptop and walked out to the floor. Sarah spotted him immediately, her eyes widening as she took in his business casual attire and the confidence in his posture. "Tom," she said as he approached. "Sarah, how are you?" "I'm good. I heard you got promoted." "Assistant manager?" "That's right." They stood there for a moment, the memory of their last real conversation hanging between them. "That's wonderful," Sarah said finally. "You seem different." "I am different." Sarah shifted uncomfortably. "Tom, about what happened before, what I said, don't worry about it. I was thoughtless. I didn't mean to hurt you. Tom studied her face. She seemed genuinely remorseful, but he found that the sharp edge of his anger had dulled into something more like indifference. You were honest, he said. I can respect that. Still, I could have been kinder. Maybe, but you did me a favor, actually. Sarah looked confused. How so? You made me realize I needed to change. Not for you, but for myself. They talked for a few more minutes, the conversation easier than it had been in months. As Sarah prepared to leave, she hesitated. Tom, I know this might be presumptuous, but would you like to get that coffee sometime? I'd like to apologize properly. Tom considered the offer. 6 months ago, he would have jumped at the chance. Now, looking at Sarah, still beautiful, still polished, still the same person who had humiliated him in front of half the store, he felt nothing but mild curiosity about what might have been. I appreciate the offer, he said finally, but I'm seeing someone. It wasn't true, but it wasn't entirely false either. He was seeing someone, a better version of himself. Sarah nodded, looking slightly disappointed. Well, if you ever change your mind. After she left, Tom returned to his office and opened his laptop. An email from Dr. Martinez was waiting, an invitation to apply for a full business degree program with a partial scholarship based on his performance in the certificate program. Tom smiled and began typing his response. He had work to do. 6 months later, Tom was promoted to full manager of a larger Greenfield location across town. On his last day at the original store, Janet threw a small party in the break room. I've never seen someone transform themselves like you did, she told him, as they cut the farewell cake. Whatever motivated you, it worked. Tom glanced out at the checkout area, where he'd spent so many months learning to be invisible. Sarah hadn't been in for several weeks. Maybe she'd found a new store, or maybe she'd moved on with her life, just as he had moved on with his. Sometimes, Tom said, the best thing someone can do for you is tell you exactly who they think you are. It gives you the choice to prove them wrong. As he cleaned out his small office, Tom found a receipt from Sarah's last purchase tucked behind his computer monitor. He looked at it for a moment, then dropped it in the trash bin. He had bigger things to think about now.